Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband's mom at our wedding? For context, my husband and I got married in a courthouse 2 years ago. I told my husband to tell his family, but he didn't want to since his family wasn't my biggest fan. His family can be extremely judgmental and have said they didn't like me or my character because I grew up in a place completely opposite of where they're from. Every time I had met with his family, some type of drama would unfold. For example, his mom accused me of touching his brother's leg inappropriately at his grandfather's funeral. I slapped his knee because he told me a joke I thought was funny. I chalked it up to the fact that she just lost her dad, she didn't like me, so she needed someone to take some type of anger out on. I put up with a lot more than that for my husband since I never wanted to be the type of person to ask him to choose. 5 months ago, I had our second child. When I had found out I was pregnant, my husband and I were going through a rough patch. We almost divorced because of a lot of things, his mother being one of them. We decided to really work on our marriage, and we've been amazing ever since. The best we've ever been. During my pregnancy, his mother and I got really close. I'd like to say I'm a really forgiving person, and I try to see the best in everyone. Also, it was making my husband happy. She even came down to stay with us when I had the baby. Fast forward a month later, she called my husband and said she and his dad would love to come and visit since his dad had yet to meet the baby. I thought the visit went well, but while my husband had gone outside to get my toddler's car seat from their rental car, my father-in-law told my husband he needed to swab his mouth to make sure the baby was his. My husband, of course, got angry and asked my father-in-law if that was the reason they came to visit. My mother-in-law ran outside because she heard them fighting and told my husband it was nothing like that everyone in the family was swabbing their mouths because they were doing a 23andMe. She said that my sister-in-law and brother-in-law had done it, so they wanted him to do it too. He declined doing one, and we left it at that. A month after the visit, my mother-in-law called my husband and said she needed to speak with him privately. He went outside for an hour to speak with his mother, and he came back inside visibly upset. He pulled me to my room privately and informed me that my mother-in-law and father-in-law had swabbed both my newborn's mouths and my toddler's mouth when they had visited. They said that my toddler came back 99.99% related to them, but my newborn only came back 11% related to them. So they felt they need to tell my husband so he could get my newborn DNA tested. I was confused and angry. I had also just found out my brother had a brain tumor as well, so there had already been a lot going on for me emotionally. When my husband and I separated, I had not slept with anyone else since our relationship was so rocky. I didn't want to do anything more to jeopardize losing him, so I wasn't understanding why she felt the need to take a DNA test into her own hands, especially since it wasn't a concern of my husband's. Ever since my husband was told of the DNA test, him and his mother would not stop fighting for a number of reasons. I no longer trusted her with my children, and I no longer wanted her around, and she couldn't understand that. We decided to get a DNA test on our newborn so we can shove the results in her face and we can move on with our lives. Of course, the test came back 99.9999999% my husband, and she thought we could just pretend it didn't happen, but the damage was done. That brings us to today. We set boundaries with mother-in-law and father-in-law. They can no longer video chat the children every day like before. Our daughter is not allowed to go over to mother-in-law's alone, and we no longer update them about things going on in our lives. We've kept them at a distance, and it's working for us. Recently, my husband and I started marriage classes so we could redo our wedding with our families included. My family knows the whole situation with mother-in-law, and I'm also not her biggest fan, so I told my husband I do not feel comfortable inviting them to our wedding. My husband was obviously upset, but understood. We've set our save the dates to everyone in his family but mother-in-law and father-in-law. There's been nothing but drama since. I'm putting my foot down on the situation and still strong on the decision that I do not want them to come to but my husband is stressed because they're involving everyone in his family in our drama. Should I just give in for his sake and invite them? Should I stand my ground and say no? Am I the a-hole if I don't invite them? My husband told his mom we got married an hour after we said I do. He was hesitant to tell his mother-in-law because 1, she wasn't my biggest fan, and 2, she wants all her children to get married in a church. So the first words out of her mouth were, "You guys aren't actually married." And it is now That is not your wife whenever they're arguing because she's drunk. Also, my husband is the one who wants this wedding. I was reluctant, and I personally thought a party was enough, but he did want us to get married in a church, so after I thought about it and I figured things out with myself religiously, I agreed. And to answer the question most asked, she has not apologized. She has called me to talk out the situation, and I explained to her I understood her doubt. I also explained to her that it made no sense to me why she couldn't just ask for the test since she and I were in such a good spot. I would have done it willingly. Her apology went along the lines of, I'm not going to apologize because I believe what I did was right to protect mine. And when I informed her we were taking some space, her response was, I don't understand because I've disrespected you so much in the past, why is now different? So, for those saying they're all for second chances, I've given her 1,000,000. I've spoken with my husband about the situation, and he says he's fine with either. He is fine with them not being there, and he's fine with them being there under certain conditions. Don't invite them. I'm sorry. She's been awful to you in so many regards. And a wedding is supposed to be a day that's about you and your love as a couple, and it's supposed to be this joyous, wonderful thing, not something that you're doing to appease them, not something to appease other people. And if having this woman there that has treated you so poorly would be negative to you in that situation, which of course it would be, yeah, I don't think she gets an invite. And you know what? If she's just like, how could you not invite us to this wedding? How could you not? Just be like, well, you know what? I'm just doing what's right to protect myself. Story 2. Today I effed up by letting my coworker move in with me. I won't bore you with the details of how, but I'm a widow, age 38. After losing my husband 10 years ago, I decided to transfer to a different state in my career. I sold our home for a tidy profit, bought a good-sized 4-bedroom house, and started anew. I've been in this area for 7 years and never really dated. Went on some coffee dates, but nothing that made me want to stop wearing my ring. I know I'm kind of sad still wearing it even after my husband is long gone, but I never felt the need to remove it. After losing my husband and having uterine cancer soon after made me infertile, I just decided to coast. Enter my coworker, Jason, fake name, who transferred in a year ago. He is in the middle of a nasty divorce. His parents live close and they want to sell and move to a warmer climate, but not until the end of the year. Rent and housing has obviously skyrocketed, so I offered him a bedroom in my home. He mentions he can't because he has 2 little girls, 6 and 7, and his wife wants everything but them, and she's willing to sign over rights as long as she gets their house. After a discussion, I agreed to let him and his daughters move in for 30 days as a trial. Well, it's been 9 months, and it's been amazing. Unfortunately, I've fallen in love with him and the girls. My house finally has sounds of happiness instead of echoes of loneliness. I haven't felt like this since my wedding day when I got married at 18, and I am so scared. I tried squishing down my feelings, but I couldn't. I threw myself back into the dating game and tried going out as much as possible every time, leading to disappointment. Jason came to me last month and advised his parents are moving at the end of the year and he would finally be out of my hair. His parents would be letting him move into their house and he and the girls would have their own place. I congratulated him and offered to help pack the house and decorate the girls' new rooms. Well, he was able to move in last weekend, hence where I effed up big time. The last day he and the girls were here, I made a huge goodbye dinner. As the girls climbed into his car to go to their home, I hugged him possibly too long and went to kiss him on the cheek. He went to do the same and we missed. I kissed him and he kissed me, and neither of us pulled away until one of the girls made an ew screech from the car. I mumbled to drop my key off under the mat when he was ready to and closed the door on him. He knocked and asked to talk later, but I didn't open it or respond. I had taken this week off anyway for Christmas and am avoiding his texts and calls. My voicemail is full from him. I go back to work on Tuesday and will see him, and I'm dreading it. You had, like, the happy storybook ending of a Hallmark movie, and then a kid said ew and ruined it, and I know you're nervous and you're scared, but clearly there's something there, and pursue it! You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to find this kind of wonderful happiness, or at least take a chance on it. And I can't imagine how tough it is having lost your husband and the uterine cancer that you got over and all that stuff. Like, I don't know how hard that's been for you, but I do know that you're allowed to be happy. And even if it was a mistake on his part and he wants to say, I don't know, I'm sorry, it was in the moment, that's fine. But try, at least try, because something like that where you know how you feel about this guy and his girls and all that stuff, that might be a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity, so go for it. Story 3. My best friend says I owe her everything I have, including my boyfriend. I know I should be careful calling someone best friend in a post like this, but I don't know how else to call Jessie. Our parents are great friends, so we grew up together, and she kind of had my back in high school. Long story short, on the teenage food chain, she was on top and I should be on the bottom, but nobody messed with me because I was Jessie's friend. Jessie is one of those people who require attention. I never minded though, nobody is perfect, right? But now that I have my first real boyfriend, she doesn't know how to behave. Every time we're together, she is really handsy, always touching his arms, running fingers through his hair, complimenting him, and now she even started with the prank spankings on the butt, you know? I just feel really uncomfortable with it. Maybe it's normal. I mean, Jessie has a lot of guy friends, so maybe this is okay. My boyfriend never thought much of it either. Am I just overreacting? She is super pretty, so maybe I'm just jealous. Anyway, yesterday, something really threw me off. My boyfriend had to do some work and I had a book thing, hobby, so we decided to meet later at a friend's house. They were getting together to drink and so on. Boyfriend finishes work early and calls me, but I don't really need him to come over to the book thing. I know he doesn't like it, so I just tell him to go to friend's house. Then I start getting texts from Jessie all like, "Girl, you gotta come to this party now. Your boyfriend is wasted, LOL. LOL, we're so drunk you need to come and stop us. I can't behave myself if you don't get here soon." And so on. The book thing took longer than I thought, and I was just getting madder and madder, but I'm a very non-confrontational person, so I deal with it. I call my boyfriend when it's over, because I don't feel like going to this party anymore, but I was his ride, so I ask him if he needs me to come pick him up. He says sure. I get there and don't even go inside. I'm ready to release the hounds of hell on him, but he gets in my car and he's stone cold sober. I ask him if he was drinking and then show him Jessie's texts. He gets super upset and says she was lying. He wasn't even hanging directly with her, but catching up with a friend who just came back to town. He said I should have texted him letting him know what she was saying so he could confront her about it, since you don't ever seem to be able to give that girl some boundaries. His words. Now I'm thinking maybe I should talk to Jessie, but maybe she was just drunk and annoying me because she wanted me there. I don't know, I mean, this girl was really nice to me growing up when she could have been a B. I don't like how she behaves around him, but at the same time, I don't want it to look like I don't trust her. Is there a polite way of going about it? Or I should maybe wait and see if this happens again? Am I overreacting? Okay, this sounds like a much younger person, so I have to be more understanding, but folks, I don't know how many times I can just keep saying, communicate. Every healthy relationship requires communication. That's not just romantic relationships, that's friendships and family relationships too. You need to communicate. If you're having issues with Jessie, now maybe the stuff she's doing is kind of malicious. Maybe it isn't. The way to confuse yourself and get worked up and bottle up emotions that maybe aren't appropriate is to just ruminate on it and watch her and suspect stuff. Talk to her. She might lie. She might avoid the subject. She might give you perfectly good explanations. Who knows? But talking is the only way that you're going to, start to make an understanding if things are okay. And if she is really being, a bad person and doesn't have your best interests at heart, that'll eventually come to fruition one way or another. But if she is, genuinely good intentioned, that's not going to come to light unless you actually just talk to her. Story 4. Today I effed up by burning both my armpits. Okay, so I, 35 male, have been having light therapy sessions over the past 2 months. This is because of a skin condition I got out of nowhere in 2020. Yep, that's how long it's taken to get sorted. This skin problem was over around 80% of my body, so getting it sorted was a must. No one really knows why it happened, but I surmised that it might have something to do with the fact that I spent a year in my house on my own and getting next to no exposure to sunlight. It has led to me not feeling confident, shying away from photos, and wearing a lot of baggy clothes. For those not in the know, light therapy is basically where I stand undressed in something akin to an upright tanning booth, where over the course of up to 30 sessions, 3 times a week, your body gets blasted with UV rays. It's quite intensive, but once you get into a routine, it can be quite an enjoyable experience, with nurses there to document how well the treatment is going, giving words of encouragement all the way. When starting out, I was dubious on if it would work. Over the last 3 years, I had tried multiple ailments, creams, and moisturizers, all to no avail. But after 2 weeks, I had started to see results. My skin started looking better, and with it, my confidence grew. There are a list of do's and don'ts when you're preparing and attending these sessions, and one of the things you have to do is when standing in the booth for your session, stay still and also in the same position each time. This is to make sure you get an even coverage each time, and there are even handrails in front of you so as to make sure your arms don't get in the way. So this week, one of the nurses is so happy with the results that she tells me that I'll probably have my last session this coming Monday, and I'm stoked. After she leaves the changing room to allow me to get ready, goggles, etc., I proudly look at myself in the mirror. I'm no looker, and I'm chunkier than I once was, but this was the first time I could look at my reflection and not feel repulsed. I then raised one of my arms to see the coverage. The session had given me a bit of a tan, something I've not been used to. And to my surprise, there was a pale patch around my armpit. I checked the other arm to find the same issue. Now, any normal person would just shake it off and chuckle about it over time, but this dumbbutt sees these pale patches and decides to get crap done. Without telling my nurses of my discovery, I enter the booth and move the placement of my hands up so that my underarms can get unblocked coverage. I'm told I'll be in there for about 4.5 minutes. In the past, I've gone up to 9 minutes, so it's not too unusual. So in my mind, it should be enough to even out the skin tone. My session finishes and I go home, all the while happy to know that by this time next week, my light therapy will be done and dusted. Heading to my bedroom, underarms felt a little bit sore, but something akin to how I felt when starting the course of treatment, so I paid it no mind. I wake up this morning and my underarms are on fire. I carefully hop to the bathroom and look in the mirror. What once were pasty pit patches were now bright red. I find my moisturizer and apply a thick helping on each side. It may not help the redness, but it's cool and soothing, so will do the job for now. I have spent the rest of the day walking around like a guy who goes to the gym way too much, which, if you could see the dad bod I'm rocking, makes it all the more hilarious. Turns out the nurses weren't lying when they were talking about the intensity of the UV rays, as the reason it takes 10 weeks to do a full course is to make sure your skin is gradually exposed. So basically, I've given my armpits the extent of 2 weeks within 4 minutes. Ouch. I go back to the hospital tomorrow for my last session of the week, and I have no idea what I'm to do. The nurses never asked to check under my arms, so it'll be probably up to me whether I tell them about my stupid decision, although, honestly, I'm surprised it took me this long to F up. So yeah, sore and embarrassed doesn't even cover it. I went to the hospital for my appointment today and bit the bullet. I mentioned the redness under the arms, and they assumed that in my half-awake state I must have positioned my hands in the wrong place. My appointments are in the morning, and I often walk in pretty sleepy. So that saved me some modicum of embarrassment. I was given some sunscreen to apply onto the area so as to make sure it wasn't affected further. I have to do the same to my feet, as the tops of them have sensitive skin. Then they asked me to show them the pose I'll be standing in to see if I could still have the therapy today, basically making sure none of the red areas were on show. Only wobble I may have had was that the machine had had new lights put in on Thursday, so it was extra toasty, but otherwise everything went fine. I asked about treatment over the weekend, and they suggested hydrocortisone, over-the-table stuff, and apply as directed. So yeah, I did a dumb thing, but honestly, it was a live-and-learn moment. Okay, so first off, folks, when you have medical instructions like that, don't decide on a whim to just alter just a little bit, especially, a ways into treatment. There is no harm in just grabbing a nurse or doctor and being like, hey, I've noticed it's a little pale under here. Should I reposition? Would that be smart? Is that okay? Is it like the worst that's going to happen is they're going to be like, don't do that. Like, it's fine. They don't mind if you ask questions. The other thing I will say, though, I can sympathize with this person because while I've never basically sunburnt my armpits, I have one allergy that I know of, and that is whatever is inside of gel deodorants, because as a teenager, I was using gel deodorants, and I got burning rashes under my arms, and walking around like that, just every movement of your arms is just discomfort and awful. So all of my sympathy to this person and his, punished pits. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.